Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
The month of September brought about a lot of conversation about back to school, kids transitioning, meeting their teacher, making new friends, setting up for a year of change. And at the heart of it all, friendships. The social connections that make the clock go a little faster and the work feel a little less cumbersome. But here's the thing, that younger age group typically finds their way as they are set up in an environment designed for group interactions. So what about adults? Have you noticed that making friends or even maintaining relationships in adulthood seems more like a chore, something you actively need to work on if you want them? And why does it seem like there's a heightened sense of loneliness and division as of late? I'm Melanie Ng, and in this episode of The Big Story, we examine these relationships, the drivers behind the fatigue, and what could be done to help. Joining me for this conversation is clinical psychologist Dr. Loren Soeiro. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me, Melanie.
I'll be honest with you, I wanted to do this episode because I'm seeing it. I'm in my mid-40s, and I'm starting to have these conversations quite a bit. I'm seeing friendships that I've maybe had from childhood fall by the wayside, new ones come about, and ones that take more effort. I came across an article you wrote in Psychology Today, and you talked a lot about loneliness. At the heart of friendships or building of friendships, on the other side is the idea of loneliness. What do you mean by that? What have you been seeing with some of the people you've been talking to?
Well, loneliness is a felt condition. It's not the same as isolation, and it can afflict almost anyone. I'm referring specifically to people whose lives otherwise might feel full. You know, they may have partners, they may have children, they may have good careers and good living situations, but still feel lonely. Um, You alluded to in your introduction that there may be some structural forces in our lifespans that put us in this position, as we get a bit older and find ourselves wondering where our friendships have gone. Um, you said the kids have no problem making and keeping friends in school. And that is true up to and through the college years, I think. Um, there was a great book on the subject, came out quite a while ago, called Bowling Alone, focused on America, of course. And in that book, Robert Putnam suggested that the friends that people meet in college may be the last new friends that people will ever meet, will ever make in their lives. In college, you're thrown together with a bunch of like-minded people with a fair amount of similarity. You certainly have the same goals, the same living space, the same structure of your lives. It's very easy to get to know people. You're sorted into activities and interests. After that, when you graduate from college and become employed, your priorities may change. You are suddenly thrown together with people who do your job, but may not be the same age, may not live anywhere near you, or may have very different life circumstances. It's probably a lot harder to have to sustain your old friendships at those times and to make new ones.
When we talk about making new ones, let's start there. I had a conversation with a friend the other day, a university friend that I've maintained that relationship, but we've had to work hard on it. I'll be honest with you. And she moved to a new city recently. And I said, well, have you made a lot of friends? She said, I've made acquaintances. I wouldn't say I necessarily have made friendships. We haven't gotten to that point yet because I don't know how to start those conversations. As you noted, you're looking for like-minded people. In a work environment, depending on your work structure, and you're a manager, and then you want to build a friendship with someone who maybe is below you in the hierarchy at least. And it's weird. It puts you in a weird position. So the workplace is a weird one to try to make those friendships. But as adults, is there something within us that is a stop mode, where as kids, we say, no problem. You walk up to someone in the playground and say, hey, want to go play soccer? Or hey, do you want to go play tag? But as adults, something that just puts this barrier in front of us?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very practical. You work all day, all week. Your days are very similar. And at the end of the day, you may not have the energy that you once had to say, to go out that night or to um, get a group of friends together to do the things that you used to enjoy. You'll feel more tired, you'll have less energy, and you'll have less time to do it in. And at the same time, the friends that you might otherwise socialize with, they feel the same way. So sometimes it ends up with nobody taking the initiative.
If no one takes the initiative, then that friendship just sort of dissipates. It kind of falls apart, does it not?
It can stall. And in some friendships are more activity based than others. These are people who run together or in a book club together or what have you, Dungeons and Dragons. If these activities end and people move or their lives take on other priorities, it can be very difficult to sustain a friendship that was based almost exclusively on that activity.
Right. Let me ask you about this. The last few years, the pandemic has done quite a bit to all aspects of our life. And friendships, I find, it has really changed relationships, not just friendships, relationships as a whole and how we view things. Would you say for people you've talked to that it has produced a different sense of who they want to interact with, how they want to interact?
I would agree with that. I think people may not even have noticed this because it's just so built into the way their jobs and lives are now structured. They used to go into an office and see their colleagues each day. They would also see, the person who sold them their coffee or, the familiar strangers on the train. Um, those people are no longer a part of their lives during the pandemic years and to some degree thereafter, although there's a lot of return to office orders coming up now, which people find pretty uncomfortable. Um, During the pandemic, people lost the practice in meeting and enjoying the company of these, familiar strangers, the weak ties, some sociologists will say.
Would you say we've also lost this form of communication, the small talk? Um, because often we're doing this, and I should note to our viewers, we are talking online. You're based out in New York. I'm here in Toronto, and we're doing this because of the situation that we are in. We have to do it this way. But often people are so used to talking on the screens and so used to doing it that way as part of their interactions that we've lost the meeting someone in person, looking them in the eye, feeling out their body language, seeing their expressions, going off of that. This is something that, I go back to childhood. This is what we were so used to doing. This is all we knew. And now there's this complete shift to digital where it's just not the same, even those small interactions outside of the friendships.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, as a side anecdote, I mean, I'm a psychologist. I do psychotherapy, and I used to do it exclusively in person. And I work a lot with people who are anxious. And one way in which I would take account of anxiety is to notice what their feet were doing, because people tend to tap their feet or their feet are in tension, the legs are twisted up. And now I don't see that. So, it's a different set of information sources that I work with now.
Interesting. I'm curious as to what else you're looking for then as indicators or how to help some of your clients and your patients when you're looking for those cues.
I have to turn it into open questions. And I think I would say that I pay a lot more attention to micro expressions and facial features. Um, Therapy has changed a lot. I know this is not our topic, but therapy has changed a lot over the past few years. It's become extremely informal and not impossible for me to log on and find that somebody is not wearing a shirt.
Hmm. Is it so? Let's say for the average person who is just looking at their relationships and trying to make friends, and have we are we good at picking up on social cues now, or have we lost some of it?
I think that you're right to say that, and that social skills and small talk, they are. I mean, it's a cliche to say they're like muscles, but they are skills that benefit from practice. From doing them every day without even thinking about it. For a long time, people sort of seceded from that side of things, and many people actually felt good about it. I mean, I've worked with somebody who says he misses the pandemic because he no longer had to make small talk with people. It was a relief for him, for his particular way of seeing the world. But for many of us, it has turned what used to be just expected into something effortful.
Let me ask you about the role of social media when it comes to relationships, specifically friendships. There's a lot of um, comparison that happens online, and it's so easy for us to just scroll, 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 look to the next, and see, oh, there's Sharon and Susie hanging out again. I got excluded, or look at how much fun they're having at this gala, and all of this. And there's this fear of missing out. How is that playing a role from what you're seeing in overall friendships?
Well, social media it can have some positive effects as well. I mean, it can keep some distant ties alive and give you a chance to keep up with people who are from your past. But you're right that it also tends to throw aspects of other people's lives in your face and in a way that is a little bit performative. It's a kind of a funhouse mirror. It distorts friendships in the way they seem. And as a matter of fact, there's been an effect noticed called the strong friendship paradox, which is that everybody seems to feel that all of their friends have more friends than they do. And it's not possible for this to be universally true, but everyone seems to feel this way.
What about these accounts where you see they've got X thousand followers, but in real life, two friends? There's a lot of that comparison online, or it's this distorted reality that I think a lot of people take at face value, and that's a part that I see a lot in what I do. And people want to be verified. They want to be, they want that check mark to show I am an important person. You want to be a friend of mine. We want to be interacting online. But those friendships, when you compare a digital friendship, one that someone has never met before and they just follow them, they like what they post, versus an in-person friendship where you want to actually hang out with them, what does it do for a person to have one or the other?
Well, these, nearly exclusively online friendships, they can be real and they can be good for you as long as they're reciprocal, as long as they're not entirely one-sided. And I mean, I suppose an entirely, completely one-sided relationship would be, um, it is a parasocial relationship. Um, where people feel close to podcasters, for instance, or influencers, because they spend a lot of time paying close attention to what they're doing, um, but they don't know them at all in person. Um, on the other hand, you can meet people online and interact with them regularly, assuming that these relationships are healthy and respectful, and that can be a real help. It can really cut down on feelings of loneliness and isolation.
How important would you say it is to hold on to relationships and friendships that perhaps don't serve you? Maybe it's a childhood friend that you are only close to because you have the history, but you have nothing in common anymore with. Um, would you say it is healthy to hold on to these relationships for the sake of doing it? Or is it worth reevaluating, almost taking inventory of the friendships in your life and going quantity over quality?
Um, I think in every case, you may ask yourself, uh, what are the benefits? What am I getting out of this, and what am I giving to it? If you're giving more to this old friend than you feel like you're getting, if there are microaggressions or insults or comparisons going on, if there's something coming back to you that leaves you feeling uncomfortable, you should take an honest look at it and whether it's worth whatever it is that you get out of it. In some cases, friendship compromises may be worthwhile. In others, not.
At the beginning of the episode, you talked about people's lives. There, at this age, you've got a lot of working professionals. There are kids. There are extracurricular activities. Time is of the essence. There's only so much of it within a day, and so I know a lot of people are very protective of their time. If I'm going to hang out with you, I really want to hang out with you, and I don't want to maybe have the small chat because I'd rather have the quality conversations. And as you said, the reciprocal relationship. I want to touch on this one part because just before we launched this episode, I had a conversation with someone about this. And I said, what would you want to ask? And they said, well, given the industry that we are in, is in the news industry, a lot of people feel careful. It's kind of a divided place. You're living in the United States. We're in Canada. The role that politics can potentially play, because people want to find someone who is like-minded, but when it comes to friendships, they also want to ensure that they are aligned in many ways. Have you experienced this? Have you talked to anyone about the way people are aligning their politics and how they're finding friendships or perhaps shedding friendships?
hmm That's a complex question. It is much harder in the USA these days to have a conversation that goes across political lines and to feel like it's two people really listening to each other and really wanting to hear what the other person thinks about the issue and offering the benefit of the doubt. Um, that's very unfortunate. At the same time, I do hear from and meet with a lot of people who are deeply troubled by political differences, and as you said, they make it. It feels almost impossible for them to connect across ideological lines. Um, and in addition to that, I am thinking of some people in particular. There are other ways of thinking. I mean, you and I might call them conspiracies or about health, about uh, world events. It's hard to maintain a relationship when you start to realize that the person that you're connecting to no longer subscribes to the same version of reality that you do, um, and that you can't have a conversation across those lines.
So in those scenarios, is this a friendship that no longer serves you because you can't come to common ground, or is it a friendship that you hang on to that you just no longer have certain conversations about?
That would be exactly the right question to ask. I mean, in some cases, it may be possible to, go away for the weekend with a bunch of college friends and know that one of them, you absolutely shouldn't talk about the Middle East or what have you. In some cases, that's an agreement on both sides and the relationship can be sustained. But in others, there may be direct provocations, or one person may feel threatened by the possibility that the conversation can go off the rails.
Dr. Soeiro, I want to end with something positive because I think friendships have such great, fruitful moments and memories. For you and in your experience, when people make meaningful connections, what can that truly do for someone?
Well, it's good for your health. Friendship is works against isolation, which, as you probably know, is a public health hazard. Has the same health effects as smoking, for instance. It allows people to add meaning to their lives. Being open with other people, being genuine about yourself, and receiving genuine feedback and receiving connection and response, that's something that everybody needs and everybody benefits from. That said, it's not the only type of friendship that makes our lives better. There are the weak ties that I mentioned earlier, having the same barista every morning. There are your activity friends, the people that you see for a book club, like I said. And then there are your long-term intimate connections. Relying on one person for all of those things, that's a lot of pressure. So each of us can benefit from a diversified, let's say, portfolio of friendship and relationships that can add to our lives, make us feel better connected, make us feel better about ourselves from each of those categories.
Dr. Loren Soeiro, I appreciate you taking the time with us today. Really great conversation, and it makes me want to give my friends a hug, is truly what it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melanie.
And that was The Big Story. You can send us feedback on this episode or any other episode by emailing us at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca. You can find us on the Seeker app or on all of your favorite podcast players. Don't forget, you can rate, review, follow, and share. I'm Melanie Ng. Thank you so much for listening.